According to the internet, this is dubbed as the saddest book on earth. And after reading it, I think that is a well-deserved title. There are other books that have made me tear up, but nothing has ever made me cry, like the real kind of crying, the ugly crying, except for this book. There are a lot of reviews where people felt like this book was over the top in excessively communicating a world full of hopelessness. Ultimately, it's a story about mental health, and what we get to see is how our minds can choose to perceive reality in order to ensure our survival. It's such an imaginative story that I can only describe as fascinating. As soon as I finished this, it was an instant 5 stars for me. I just loved it. I looked at the list of books I've read so far this year, and I noticed a trend. I seem to gravitate towards sad books. Some of those books were heart-wrenching, but they had a hopeful and inspiring tone, while others had me bawling uncontrollably, feeling utterly shattered and left with a lot of heavy emotions. And that is how this particular video came to be. Today, I'll be sharing 5 sad books that I read and loved. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Stacy and welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. This channel is all about books and film. If you are into bookish content like reviews, recommendations, and soon-to-come vlogs, feel free to subscribe. If you also enjoy movie and series reviews, feel free to subscribe too. Let's start with the first book that I read, which is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. According to the internet, this is dubbed as the saddest book on earth. And after reading it, I think that is a well-deserved title. Look up anything related to this book and you'll mostly find polarizing comments. Some people hated it because they felt like it had unnecessary and extreme sadness and hopelessness, while others felt broken but loved the story because of how deeply it affected them. For me, this is the only book that I've read so far, in fact I think in my entire life, that has literally left me uncontrollably crying. There are other books that have made me tear up, but nothing has ever made me cry like the real kind of crying, the ugly crying, except for this book. After reading this, I learned that you can cry because you feel sad and you want to let it all out, or your body can simply induce tears on your behalf because what you're engaging with is overwhelmingly sad. This is one book that I would never gift anyone because what do you even say to the person you're gifting? This book is sadness, hopelessness, a lot of torture, just the worst of humanity, and when I read it, I thought of you, so here you go. I feel like it would honestly be an insult to give anyone this kind of book or to gift them this kind of book, because normally when you gift somebody a book, it's like, I think you're going to like this book, or I read this book and it reminded me of you. So, but if you tell somebody, I think you're going to like this book, why would they like the content that is here? Because the content that is here is some dark stuff. A Little Life is about 4 friends who moved to New York to establish their careers. The friends are JB, Willem, Malcolm, and Jude. JB is a painter with a witty and lively personality, the type that is most likely the center of attention at social gatherings. Willem is an actor who is caring, considerate, and highly empathetic, especially towards people who are vulnerable, disadvantaged, or disabled in society. Malcolm is an architect who is quite pragmatic, but he manages to balance that with his artistic side. Lastly, Jude is a highly intelligent lawyer who is extremely introverted and often withdrawn from the world. Their move to New York marks the start of their journey as they find themselves in a new environment with little to no money. You get to see this group of 4 best friends as they navigate their careers, as they navigate adulthood, and you see how their bond grows and changes over time. They experience extreme lows in life, but there are also moments of joy and happiness. At its core, it's a book about human resilience. It shows the worst of humanity, but also highlights the strength and resilience that humans can have, even in the face of devastating experiences beyond your control. The book blurb for A Little Life goes something like this. When 4 classmates from a small Massachusetts college move to New York to make their way, they are broke, adrift, and buoyed only by their friendship and ambition. There is kind, handsome Willem, an aspiring actor. JB, a quick-witted, sometimes cruel, Brooklyn-born painter seeking entry to the art world. Malcolm, a frustrated architect at a prominent firm, and withdrawn, brilliant, enigmatic Jude, who serves as their center of gravity. Over the decades, their friendships deepen and darken, tinged with addiction, success, and pride. Yet their greatest challenge, each comes to realize, is Jude himself. By midlife, a terrifyingly talented litigator, yet an increasingly broken man. His mind and body scarred by an unspeakable childhood, and haunted by what he fears is a degree of trauma that he'll not only be unable to overcome, but that will define his life forever. If you ever want to read this book, look up trigger warnings and take them seriously if you think there's even the slightest chance that they might affect you. There are strong themes of suicide ideation, emotional and psychological abuse, physical abuse, pedophilia, and just so much more, a lot. Hanya Yanagihara basically just took the worst of humanity and jammed it all in this book called A Little Life. And it all comes from the perspective of the people who are affected when we have humans who just choose to follow a dark path in life and harm others on their way. What I liked about this book is that it's not your typical storyline where the characters go through a hard time, fight really hard, and come out victorious in a healthy amount of time. You can't really describe this book as having any kind of happy ending, and if you ask, most people will say it is sad from start to finish, which is true. When someone goes through a difficult or extremely traumatic experience, it can feel like it goes on forever, and that aspect of a never-ending difficult situation is what this book depicts. It demonstrates how good and bad experiences ebb and flow in life, and how sometimes, even if you fight your way out of a destructive environment, the wounds from that experience can become their own demons that you need to fight for a longer period of time. Even as those wounds heal, they can continue to impact your life for a very long time, or even for a lifetime. There are a lot of reviews where people felt like this book was over the top in excessively communicating a world full of hopelessness. I do think it captures the complexities of real life, specifically on the extreme end of the spectrum. What got to me is that in real life, the story of A Little Life is somebody's reality. I sometimes watch content from a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly, where people who have gone through some of the most traumatic and difficult experiences share their stories. While reading A Little Life, I recognized multiple true stories from this YouTube channel that closely resemble the story that is told in this book. And that is what brought me to tears and left me with such heavy feelings after reading this book. Some of the stories on Soft White Underbelly still haunt me to this day. Most of the people who share their stories there are people who from childhood, they had no one there for them. All the adults in their lives failed them, and some of them even went as far as to put them in dangerous situations. When I mentioned something to do with the power of human resilience in the beginning, this is what I'm talking about. If you just want to know how strong people can be in the face of so much darkness, this YouTube channel is where to go. Although I should warn you that if you're a person who's affected by things very easily, then this channel is not for you. If you're a person who is triggered by certain things, then this channel is also not for you, because the stories that are told there are real life stories, and they're very heartbreaking, they're very horrific, to be honest. And it is just astounding how these people, they not only just had to fight so much, but they remain people with so much light to offer the world. Like, you see them speaking and you see how they're speaking in their reactions, and you can see that they still have so much light in them despite the fact that they went through such horrific things. If you're one of those people that feel like this book was too extreme in its depiction of trauma, and you happen to be watching this video, go to the YouTube channel Soft White Underbelly and watch a couple of videos. It will open your eyes to how A Little Life is sadly so close to somebody else's reality. So do I recommend reading this book? Honestly, this is one where the decision should be solely up to the reader. All the books in this video have sad stories, but if I'm comparing everything, this one is the most extreme, and the rest do not even come close to the story that is told here. After I was done reading this, I had to go and watch some happy Disney movies and look up some lightweight, fun, and cozy books just to remind myself there's more good in this world than there is bad. You've reached Some by Dustin Thao. This is a story about finding love for the first time, experiencing its beauty, then losing it all in the blink of an eye. Our two main characters are Sam and Julie. They're in a relationship, and also they're in a transitional point where they're entering adulthood. They're figuring out how to shape their lives both individually and as a couple. When we meet them, they're both about to graduate, and they're making plans to build their lives together. So they're thinking of moving to a new area, just the two of them. They're thinking of buying an apartment. They're thinking of the kind of jobs they'll want to take and the career path they want for themselves, which will also influence the university choices that they make. It all sounds wonderful until Sam suddenly dies. I know what you're thinking, and no, this is not a spoiler. It really is not. It's also in the book blurb, and it's not the main part of the story. Dealing with grief is what I would say is the main focus of the story. Being young and not having experienced death up close, Julie finds herself having to deal with the fact that she has lost someone she deeply loved and was actively trying to build a life with. It is essentially a story about navigating grief and loss at a very young age. We follow Julie as she goes through a roller coaster of emotions and does things that seem unhealthy and quite troubling when you're looking in from the outside. But by the end of that emotional ride, she finds her own version of peace and acceptance. She is able to find joy and appreciation for the time she had with Sam and discovers the light at the end of the tunnel that allows her to move on with her life. The blurb goes like this. 17-year-old Julie has her future all planned out. Move out of her small town with her boyfriend Sam, attend college in the city, spend a summer in Japan. But then Sam dies, and everything changes. Heartbroken, Julie skips his funeral, throws out his things, and tries everything to forget him and the tragic way he died. But a message from Sam left behind in her yearbook forces back memories. Desperate to hear his voice one more time, Julie calls Sam's cell phone just to listen to his voicemail. And Sam picks up the phone. In a miraculous turn of events, Julie's been given a second chance at goodbye. The connection is temporary, but hearing Sam's voice makes her fall for him all over again, and with each call it becomes harder to let him go. However, keeping her otherworldly calls with Sam a secret isn't easy, especially when Julie witnesses the suffering Sam's family is going through. Unable to stand by the sidelines and watch their shared loved ones in pain, Julie is torn between spilling the truth about her calls with Sam and risking their connection and losing him forever. As the blurb shows, Sam, who passed away, picks up the phone and remains connected to Julie through phone calls. By having a young character like Sam, you get to experience this interesting perspective of what it's like to have hopes and dreams and goals for yourself, only to have none of them come true. I think this was a very relatable aspect of the book because to some degree this is everyone's reality. You may lead a life where you get a lot of the things that you want, but at some point there are certain things that you might want for yourself and you won't get them. That might be life redirecting you to something better or something different that is more suitable for you. But you still have, in the moment, you would still have the feeling of losing out on something that you wanted for yourself. Through Sam's journey, you can find aspects that are comforting and also things that make you feel less alone in navigating life. Sam's character was done really well in that he felt like he could be a real person. You can easily see Sam in yourself, in a friend, or in a person you would love to get to know in real life. The fact that Sam in the book quite literally died can also put things into perspective. It sounds very cliche, but I think the lesson here was also that as long as you're alive, you can always keep striving and you can always keep faith and hope that things will work out as you want them to. The entire premise might make you think that this is a sad and devastating book, but in reality, I found it to be more beautiful than it was sad. I do not think I even found it to be that sad. I mainly found it to be beautiful. I felt for the characters, but the way the story was written, it didn't lead me to be emotionally charged in a sad way. Instead, I very quickly accepted Julie's reality and rooted for her as she navigated grief for the first time. And also Sam, as he was forced to process that for him, life ends before he even graduates. When I think back to my reading experience of this book, it's all full of fondness. I also think we all have to deal with loss and grief at some point in our lives, And this book is one of those books that might make you feel seen, understood, normal, and hopeful. So to be honest, the ways in which Julie went about dealing with her griefs, anybody from the outside looking at her would think she's maybe losing it. But because we're getting to see Julie's point of view and understanding why she's doing the kind of things that she's doing, you understand that she's not losing her mind. She's simply processing something that was very difficult for her. The Song of Achilles is my fast foray into Greek mythology, and just saying that out loud makes me feel like I've been living under a rock. I'm late to the party, but I am here now, and that is all that matters. This story focuses on Achilles and Patroclus. Achilles was the most powerful warrior in the Greek army during the Trojan War, and Patroclus was an exiled prince who found refuge in Achilles' home. The book blurb goes something like this: Achilles, the best of all the Greeks, son of the cruel sea goddess Thetis and the legendary king Peleus, is strong, swift, and beautiful, irresistible to all who meet him. Patroclus is an awkward young prince, exiled from his homeland after an act of shocking violence. Brought together by chance, they forge an inseparable bond despite risking the god's wrath. They are trained by the centaur Chiron in the arts of war and medicine, but when word comes that Helen of Sparta has been kidnapped, all the heroes of Greece are called upon to lay siege to Troy in her name. Seduced by the promise of a glorious destiny, Achilles joins their cause, and torn between love and fear for his friend, Patroclus follows. Little do they know that the cruel fates will test them both as never before, and demand a terrible sacrifice. If you happen to be a novice like I was, the Trojan War in Greek mythology was an intense conflict where the Greeks waged war against the people of Troy. The war began because Helen, the wife of Menelaus, who was the king of Sparta, ran off with the prince of Troy. This act of stealing one's wife couldn't go unaddressed, so the Greeks waged war against Troy. The Song of Achilles focuses on two things: the war itself and the close bond between Achilles and Patroclus. Between the two, I was more interested in the dynamic between Achilles and Patroclus and couldn't have cared less about the Trojan War. And I think that's mainly because in the book itself, the wife who was kidnapped or stolen, she herself said she went willingly and did not want to go back to her husband, but the other party did not want to accept that, so the war went on. I think the lack of an emotional anchor towards going to war and, just dying, losing lives and lots of violence is what made me not care at all about the Trojan War. There are also a few things that I found jarring in the story. For example, human sacrifices, prejudice against women, and yes, I know this story is all about war, but also the utter lack of value for human life. In the grand scheme of things, and in my opinion, the war didn't need to happen after that girl said that she went willingly. But out of pride, it happened anyway. The story of Ellen and all that was only mentioned for like 2 seconds in the book. After that, none of those people that were going to war even remembered that this was all because Ellen was supposedly kidnapped. The main reason for the war is tied to Achilles and the destiny that was bestowed on him at birth. He was destined to be the greatest warrior, and for that to happen, there had to be a war. I didn't find the war interesting, but what did manage to hold my attention was seeing the bond between Achilles and Patroclus bloom into something so deep-seated. Watching their relationship grow from kids who used to play together to men who are propelled into this never-ending war was interesting. To add to that, this is a tale that includes Greek gods and goddesses and mythical creatures like centaurs, so sign me up, I'm interested. I had my qualms with this book. Initially, I was hung up on the thought that if you're going to war, it should be meaningful. It didn't feel like Achilles cared about the war. He mainly felt like he needed to fulfill his destiny as the greatest warrior. Patroclus definitely did not care about the war. He just wanted to be by Achilles' side. In the moment, their relationship also felt like we were fed the idea that they were close, but there were no intimate conversations between the two to make us see it for ourselves. And in the moment, I felt like that brought down my reading experience. But after finishing the book and reflecting on the story in its entirety, I changed my mind. This was one of those reads that do not scream 5 stars while reading it, but then the story stays with you and you realize that it's a clear 5-star. Book 4 on this list is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I'm not sure how to describe this book without giving any spoilers, because the story is so intricately tied together that giving away one detail might spoil the entire thing. Ultimately, it's a story about mental health, and what we get to see is how our minds can choose to perceive reality in order to ensure our survival. It also has themes of psychological manipulation and emotional abuse. In addition, it explores the psyche of people who do bad things and how they construct narratives for themselves to justify their actions. Our main character in this book is Piranesi. He is a gentle soul with an adventurous spirit, full of empathy, curiosity, and kindness. We essentially follow Piranesi as he navigates the world that he finds himself in. I did say that I didn't know how to talk about this book without giving away spoilers, but I looked at my Goodreads and realized that I did a pretty great job at summing up my thoughts. This was my review on Goodreads. This was a tragically beautiful exploration into mental health, emotional and psychological abuse, inhumane capabilities of humans, and so much more. Through Piranesi, it was fascinating and sad to see what the mind can construct and destroy in order to survive in the environment a person finds themselves in. It was uncomfortable to read because of the troubling characters and the constant unease you feel throughout until the plot reveals itself. But at the same time, it was a wonderful read that was worth it. The description of Piranesi's world is magical and beautiful. It was fascinating to explore through the story. I felt for Piranesi, but at the same time there was something encouraging and admirable in his journey. He may have lost a lot, but he always found beauty in the world and continued to push forward even in the face of so much confusion and darkness. And the book blurb for Piranesi goes something like this. Piranesi's house is no ordinary building. Its rooms are infinite. Its corridors endless. Its walls are lined with thousands upon thousands of statues, each one different from the other. Within the labyrinth of halls, an ocean is imprisoned. Waves thunder up staircases. Rooms are flooded in an instant. But Piranesi is not afraid. He understands the tides and he understands the pattern of the labyrinth itself. He lives to explore the house. There is one other person in the house, a man called the Other, who visits Piranesi twice a week and asks for help with research into a great and secret knowledge. But as Piranesi explores, evidence emerges of another person, and the terrible truth begins to unravel, revealing a world beyond the one Piranesi has always known. I read this by listening to the audiobook and also following along on my ebook, and I have to say that is the best way of experiencing this book. Otherwise, I feel like you might find the beginning a bit boring before you get the full picture of what is happening. I think I would have DNF'd this if I started reading the book alone. So I'm so glad I decided to go with an audiobook and an e-version book, because this is a book that is worth reading. It's such an imaginative story that I can only describe as fascinating. Listening to the audiobook brought Piranesi's world to life in a magical way that I don't think I would have been able to achieve if I was just reading the book and relying on my imagination alone. It was honestly amazing to be in Piranesi's world and slowly follow the story as it unfolds itself to you. As soon as I finished this, it was an instant 5 stars for me. I just loved it. And finally, They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This story takes place in an alternate reality where a corporation known as Deathcast exists. Deathcast can predict when somebody will die, and when a person reaches their last day, Deathcast calls them and lets them know that today is your last day. On the same day, Deathcast calls Mateo and Rufus and lets them know that they're going to die. Mateo and Rufus are complete strangers living completely different lives, and they have polar opposite personalities. But once they individually get the call, a series of events unfolds, leading to the two strangers eventually meeting and deciding to spend their last moments together. The story then becomes how these two people decide to spend their last day together as newfound friends. The book blurb reads like this. On September 5th, a little after midnight, Deathcast calls Mateo Torres and Rufus Emetrio to give them some bad news. They are going to die today. Mateo and Rufus are total strangers, but for different reasons. They're both looking to make a new friend on their end day. The good news, there's an app for that. It's called The Last Friend, and through it, Rufus and Mateo are about to meet up for one last great adventure, to live a lifetime in a single day. There is no hope that you can hold on to before or while reading this book, because The title says it all. It's gonna have a sad ending. But despite the tragic end, it was somewhat comforting how this story unfolded. I loved that the book did not have a larger-than-life experience as their last day. Instead, it showed a more down-to-earth way of experiencing life, and that carried with it more meaningful and authentic experiences that I think are worth more than a larger-than-life adventure. Those are all the sad books I've read so far, and I think from my review, the tier 5 stars are A Little Life, The Song of Achilles, and Piranesi. That leaves You've Reached Some, and they both die at the end. I think instead of giving new ratings, I'm gonna look at the ratings I give on Goodreads, because those are the most authentic ratings somebody can give, especially if you're rating the books immediately you finish them. You've Reached Some got 4 stars, and all I said was, it was simple, sad, and beautiful. They both die at the end got 3 stars on my Goodreads, and I'm a little shocked by this. My thoughts on the book were, the story didn't move me on a deeper level, but it was still well written. I enjoyed following the 2 characters on their last day and learned more about them. I like how they spend their days doing things that are not out of this world. The realistic and at the same time exciting adventures they go on make the story something beautiful in its simplicity. It didn't touch me deeply, but it was a good read. I think that's also a fairly accurate rating. And that is it. We have 3 5 stars, 1 4 star, and 1 3 star. Thanks for watching. If you'd like more content like this, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment below. When 4 classmates from a small Massachusetts, how do you say this? Massachusetts.